Jax's revenge domain. They think power comes from corner offices and board titles. They believe authority sounds like raised voices and finger-pointing across glass conference tables. That's exactly the kind of thinking that got this whole mess started. I'm Michael Peterson, 47 years old, and I've been managing enterprise networks since before these kids knew what a firewall was. 22 years in the business, started right after my Navy discharge when the Pentagon decided my cybersecurity unit was redundant due to budget optimization. Funny how they always use clean words for messy situations. I wasn't at TechFlow Solutions to impress anybody that Tuesday morning in downtown Austin. I was there for a routine security audit before their $500 million merger with some European fintech company. Standard procedure when you're handling other people's money and the SEC is watching every keystroke. My laptop was already pulling diagnostic data from their cloud infrastructure when the trouble started. The 47th floor conference room had wall-to-wall windows facing the Austin skyline, all steel and glass trying to look important. Inside, a dozen executives were video calling with their European partners, and the connection kept dropping every few minutes. Audio cutting out, screens freezing. That familiar dance of technology not cooperating when it matters most. I was monitoring network traffic from a corner table, watching data packets struggle through their overtaxed system like cars in rush hour traffic. The problem was obvious. Their video conferencing platform was hogging bandwidth during peak trading hours. Classic resource management failure. But nobody was asking for my opinion. Brandon Walsh, 28 years old, Chief Innovation Officer with a Stanford MBA, who'd never actually innovated anything except new ways to waste company resources, was getting red-faced pointing at screens like that would fix the latency. His father Richard had fast-tracked him through every promotion since he graduated, the kind of nepotism that makes good engineers quit and incompetent ones stay comfortable. The European call was falling apart in real time. Voices cutting in and out, presentations stuttering, those awkward pauses when nobody knows if the other side can hear them. I could see the bandwidth allocation charts on my screen. Their system was choking on its own ambition. "Are you still there? We're losing your audio again," came the voice from Brussels through the speakers. Brandon spun around the room, looking for someone to blame, and his eyes locked on me. "You," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're the IT guy, right?" I looked up from my diagnostic screens. "I'm Michael Peterson. I'm here for the pre-merger security compliance review." "Great. This network is garbage. Fix it now." I kept my voice level, professional. "I'm not your employee, Mr. Walsh. I'm contracted through Cloud Secure Systems for regulatory assessment only." That phrase, "not your employee," hit him wrong. His face went from frustrated red to angry purple. "I don't care who signs your checks. This call is costing us millions. Make it work." The room went quiet, except for the Europeans asking, "Hello? Are you still there?" through the speakers. Everyone was watching now, investors, board members, his own father, suddenly interested in the show Brandon was putting on. I explained the bandwidth allocation issue in simple terms, suggested they reschedule the call during off-peak hours when their trading platforms weren't consuming most of their network capacity. Basic network management, the kind of thing any competent IT department would know. But Brandon was past listening to solutions. "Are you telling me how to run my company?" His voice cracked on the high notes like a teenager arguing with his parents. "Do you know who I am?" "I know exactly who you are," I said quietly, and I did. I'd seen his type in the military, officers who confused rank with competence, who thought loudness equaled leadership. They usually learned better when the bullets started flying, but in corporate America, they could coast on daddy's connections indefinitely. The European partners were still on the line, audio cutting in and out, listening to their potential merger partner's executive team have a public meltdown over technical difficulties. Professional as always, then Brandon did it. The thing that changed everything. He pointed at the door like some movie villain and raised his voice loud enough for the entire floor to hear. "You're fired. Security will escort you out. Send your final invoice to accounting." The statement hung in the air like smoke from a gun nobody meant to fire. The European call went silent. Even the network traffic seemed to pause for a moment. I stood up slowly, methodically closing my laptop and coiling my network cables. 22 years of systems engineering teaches you to document everything, and I'd been recording performance metrics since I arrived. Every bandwidth spike, every failed connection, every unauthorized access attempt, all timestamped, all logged, all admissible. Understood, I said, sliding my laptop into its case. Good luck with your merger. Brandon smiled like a man who thought he'd won something. He had no idea he'd just fired the only person who understood how their infrastructure actually worked. I walked out while he was still lecturing the room about accountability and getting results. The elevator down was smooth and quiet, exactly the kind of smooth you get when systems are properly maintained by people who understand how they actually function. From the marble lobby, I made 3 phone calls. First to my supervisor at Cloud Secure Systems, explaining the contract termination. He laughed, not surprised, just tired of dealing with tech executives who confused bluster with business sense. Document everything, he said. Send the compliance report as is. If they want to fire the auditor before the audit's complete, that's their SEC problem, not ours. Second call was to my lawyer. When you're handling financial services infrastructure, every change has to be documented for regulatory compliance. Contract terminations, access revocations, system modifications, the lawyers love paper trails almost as much as the regulators do. Third call was more interesting. Gerald Murphy at Alpine Financial had been trying to expand their Austin operations for months, but they couldn't find infrastructure that met SEC requirements for their trading platforms. We'd worked together before when they needed emergency cybersecurity consulting, and he knew quality work when he saw it. Michael, good timing, he said when I reached him. We just heard TechFlow might be having some technical difficulties. Anything to that rumor? I told him the truth. Their current network management contract had just been terminated, and their infrastructure would be reverting to baseline configuration within hours. If Alpine was still looking for enterprise-grade systems in Austin, this might be an opportunity worth discussing. We arranged to meet for lunch at Moonshine Patio Bar and Grill. No urgency, no drama, just 2 professionals discussing business opportunity over good Texas barbecue. I drove home to my North Austin apartment, made coffee, and opened my laptop to begin the most important part of my day. See, when you're managing enterprise cloud infrastructure for a financial services company, you're not just flipping switches in some server closet. You're controlling access permissions, security protocols, data routing priorities, backup systems minus the invisible foundation that keeps a trading platform moving millions of dollars per second without hiccups. And when that management contract gets terminated, those systems don't just keep humming along out of loyalty. Contract terminated means premium services discontinued. Systems revert to baseline configuration. Everything documented, everything legal, everything by the book. I didn't sabotage anything. Sabotage implies malice and emotion, and this was pure procedure. When a management contract ends, you follow established protocols. It's like a lease expiring on a luxury apartment. The tenant doesn't get to keep the premium amenities just because they've gotten comfortable with them. The first change was network priority routing. TechFlow's high-speed trading platform went from dedicated fiber channels to shared bandwidth pool. Not broken, just not special anymore. Their data packets had to wait in line with everyone else's: email, web browsing, cat videos. In high-frequency trading, milliseconds matter, and they just lost their fast lane. Next came security access protocols. The custom authentication tokens I'd configured for their executive team had expiration timers built in minus standard security practice. 8 hours after contract termination, those tokens would expire automatically. No active management contract meant no authority to issue new ones. Basic cybersecurity housekeeping, then firewall configurations reset to manufacturer defaults. Their specialized port forwarding disappeared. VPN tunnels closed. Remote access privileges cleared. Nothing malicious, just removing the custom setup that required active maintenance. Like a chef leaving a restaurant, the kitchen still works, but the special recipes go with him. By 4 p.m., their network was running like any other basic office setup. Functional but slow, connected but unreliable, working but not optimized. The difference between a finely tuned race car and a rental economy sedan. Both will get you places, just not at the same speed or with the same reliability. My phone started buzzing around 5:30. First a text from Brandon, network issues, fix this. Then an unknown number, probably someone from their IT department, trying to figure out why their premium services had suddenly vanished. I archived the messages without responding. Professional contractors don't provide services after termination. That's how liability insurance works. You want technical support, you need an active contract. The lunch meeting with Gerald Murphy went better than I'd hoped. We met at Moonshine Patio Bar and Grill on Red River, one of those Austin places that manages to be both professional and relaxed. Gerald was already there when I arrived, studying his phone with the focused expression of a man watching numbers move in real time. "Michael, good to see you," he said, standing to shake hands. "I take it TechFlow wasn't as interested in your security recommendations as they should have been." I gave him the diplomatic version: creative differences about operational priorities, contract terms that couldn't be reconciled, mutual decision to part ways. In our business, you learn not to burn bridges even when the other side has already lit the match. "They're lost," Gerald said, cutting into his brisket. "We've been looking at Austin expansion for 8 months, but the infrastructure requirements for our compliance standards are pretty specific. SEC doesn't mess around when it comes to trading platform security." I showed him the technical specifications I documented during my TechFlow assessment, the ones that were about to become available: clean fiber connections, redundant power systems, climate-controlled server environments, dedicated security protocols. Everything Alpine needed for their regulatory requirements, just waiting for proper management. "What kind of timeline are we talking about?" Gerald asked. I explained that TechFlow's premium services were already reverting to baseline. Their infrastructure lease agreements were tied to the management contract, and without active management, those leases would be available for competitive bidding within 48 hours. Standard commercial real estate practice when technical requirements aren't being met. Gerald set down his fork and pulled out his phone. "I need to make some calls." How quickly could we have this operational if we moved fast? With the right paperwork and Alpine's existing compliance certifications, systems could be live within a week. The infrastructure is already there. It just needs new management. He was dialing before I finished the sentence. While he talked to his legal team about expedited contract negotiations, I watched the Austin skyline through the restaurant windows. Somewhere up in that glass tower, TechFlow was discovering that their network wasn't performing quite the way it had that morning. The second wave of problems would hit during after-hours trading. European markets were opening, their merger partners would be trying to transfer massive data files, and TechFlow's systems would be crawling along at shared bandwidth speeds. In the trading world, slow equals expensive, and expensive equals angry investors. Gerald finished his call and turned back to me with the kind of smile businessmen get when opportunity knocks loud enough to hear over the competition. "Legal says we can fast-track this if the infrastructure meets our specifications. They're already drafting agreements. Question is, are you interested in managing this setup for Alpine?" I was interested. Very interested. Alpine Financial had a reputation for treating technical staff like professionals instead of servants, and their compliance standards meant job security in an industry where regulations change faster than fashion trends. "What kind of arrangement?" I asked. "Full contract. $2 million annually, plus performance bonuses tied to system uptime and regulatory compliance scores. Equity options after the first year if things work out." I'd been making decent money with Cloud Secure. But this was different. This was recognition, respect, and real authority to do the job right without interference from executives who confused loudness with leadership. We shook hands over dessert, and I had a new employer before the coffee arrived. More importantly, I had the authority to build something properly instead of constantly fixing other people's shortcuts. While we were signing preliminary agreements, my phone was collecting increasingly frantic messages from TechFlow. But those were yesterday's problems, and I had tomorrow's solutions to focus on. Back at TechFlow, reality was setting in like a slow leak in a pressurized system. By Wednesday morning, their European partners were asking pointed questions about technical delays and infrastructure reliability concerns. When you're moving $500 million in a merger deal, every hiccup gets magnified under regulatory microscopes. Richard Walsh called me personally at 7 a.m. Not Brandon this time, the actual CEO, voice-controlled but strained like a man trying to sound calm while his house was on fire. "Michael, we may have had a miscommunication yesterday." I let him talk. He used corporate speak: regrettable incident, operational challenges, path forward. Translation: my son screwed up and now I'm cleaning up the mess. "We'd like to restore our previous service arrangement," he said carefully. "Same terms, same access levels, immediate implementation." I explained that the original contract no longer existed. Those terms had been terminated along with my access credentials. New arrangements would require fresh negotiations, background checks, security clearances, legal review, the full procurement process that corporate America uses to protect itself from exactly this kind of situation. How long? His voice cracked slightly. 6 to 8 weeks minimum, assuming your board approves the budget and Alpine doesn't object to competitive interference. Silence. The kind that means someone finally understands the depth of the hole they're in. Alpine? He asked. Alpine Financial. They acquired the infrastructure management contract yesterday afternoon. Very professional organization, excellent compliance record, more silence. Then, that's our infrastructure. Was your infrastructure. The lease agreements were tied to active management contracts. No contract, no priority lease status. Alpine made a competitive bid for immediate takeover. I could hear him breathing through the phone, probably doing the math on what this meant for their merger timeline, their trading operations, their regulatory compliance status. What would it take to reverse this arrangement? I walked him through contract law basics. Alpine had already transferred deposits, signed agreements, scheduled technical installations. Reversing that would require Alpine's consent, penalty payments, legal complications that could drag on for months. And Alpine wasn't interested in complications. They had their own expansion timeline to maintain. The call ended without drama. That's how you know the damage is permanent, when the shouting stops and reality settles in. Meanwhile, Alpine's technical team was already moving. Gerald had called in favors to expedite the paperwork, and by Wednesday afternoon, we had legal clearance to begin infrastructure transition. Professional, efficient, no wasted motion. I met their lead engineer, Patricia Coleman, at the building Thursday morning at 6 a.m. Former IBM systems architect, 20 years of enterprise experience, the kind of person who treats critical infrastructure like the serious business it actually is. We walked through the facility together while TechFlow's staff watched from their conference room windows. Clean setup, Patricia said, examining the server rooms. Whoever designed this knew what they were doing. Thanks. I spent 3 months getting the specifications right. She smiled. Job security through competence. I like that philosophy. The actual transition took 18 hours, not the 3 hours I'd originally mentioned to Richard Walsh. Real infrastructure moves require documentation, testing, verification, backup procedures. You don't just flip switches when you're handling other people's money. But by Friday morning, Alpine was running full operations with zero downtime. Their trading platforms hummed along at optimal speed, their European data transfers completed on schedule, their backup systems properly configured and tested. Everything TechFlow had been paying for, just under different management now. TechFlow, meanwhile, was operating on basic business internet. Fine for email and web browsing, completely inadequate for moving millions of dollars through global markets at microsecond speeds. Their merger partners were getting increasingly uncomfortable with ongoing technical issues that seemed to have no clear resolution timeline. The stock market noticed Friday morning when TechFlow announced temporary operational adjustments in a carefully worded press release. Financial services companies don't announce technical problems unless they're serious enough to affect business operations, and investors know how to read between corporate lines. TechFlow shares dropped 7% in the first hour as algorithmic trading systems flagged the announcement. By lunch, they were down 15% as analysts started asking questions about operational continuity and merger viability. The SEC opened a preliminary inquiry about their compliance status during the transition period. Brandon sent me one final message around noon. This isn't over. My father has connections you can't imagine. I archived it along with the others. Evidence matters when regulatory investigations start asking questions about contractor disputes and operational disruptions. Gerald Murphy called that afternoon with an update on Alpine's expansion. Systems are running perfectly. Patricia says she's never seen a cleaner infrastructure handover. Whatever you built over there, it's exactly what we needed. Alpine Financial announced their Austin expansion that same afternoon. New staff, new clients, new trading capabilities enabled by recently acquired enterprise-grade infrastructure. Their stock jumped 6% on the news as investors responded positively to their geographic diversification and technical capability expansion. The contrast was impossible to ignore. One company announcing technical problems and operational challenges while their stock price collapsed. Another company announcing expansion and enhanced capabilities while their stock price climbed. Same week, same city, same infrastructure, different management approaches. The merger discussions officially ended Monday morning. European partners cited unresolved operational concerns and infrastructure reliability questions in their withdrawal statement. Translation: They couldn't trust a company that couldn't maintain basic technical operations during critical business negotiations. Richard Walsh held a damage control press conference, using phrases like strategic refocusing and operational optimization. Stock analysts weren't convinced. TechFlow ended the week down 28%, and three major institutional investors announced they were reassessing their positions in the company. Industry publications started picking up the story by Tuesday. Not the personal details. Nobody cares about executive tantrums, but the business implications. How quickly enterprise operations can collapse when key technical relationships are mismanaged. How infrastructure expertise has become critical competitive advantage in financial services. The lesson was spreading through executive circles. Treat your technical people like professionals, or watch your competitors hire them away along with your operational capabilities. 6 months later, the full scope of what happened had settled into Austin's financial services landscape, like sediment after a flood. TechFlow was still operating, but barely. They'd moved to a smaller office space in a lower rent district, their trading operations now handled through leased facilities with shared infrastructure that couldn't support their original client base. Richard Walsh had quietly reassigned Brandon to what corporate press releases called a strategic advisory role. Industry translation: exiled to an office where he could do minimal damage while collecting a paycheck that wouldn't embarrass the family name. Some lessons cost more than others, and this one had carried a price tag in the hundreds of millions. Alpine Financial, meanwhile, was thriving. They'd expanded to occupy 3 floors of the original building, their operations running with the kind of smooth efficiency that comes from properly managed systems and professionally respected technical staff. Gerald Murphy had been featured in Financial Technology magazine as one of the year's most successful expansion stories. The key, he told the interviewer, is understanding that infrastructure isn't just plumbing. It's the foundation of everything else you're trying to accomplish. You invest in it properly, treat the people who manage it like the professionals they are, and everything else becomes possible. I kept a copy of that article in my office, not out of ego, but as a reminder that competence eventually gets recognized when it's paired with the right leadership. My own reputation in the industry had evolved considerably. What started as a routine contractor dispute had become something of a case study in business schools and professional development seminars. The TechFlow incident was being taught as an example of how technical expertise intersects with corporate governance and how mismanaging key relationships can cascade into operational failure. The Harvard Business Review published a piece called Hidden Infrastructure Dependencies: When Core Competencies Walk Out the Door. The authors had interviewed dozens of executives about similar situations where technical talent had been undervalued until it disappeared, taking critical capabilities with it. I was invited to speak at 3 different cybersecurity conferences that year, not about revenge or workplace drama, but about the business value of treating infrastructure professionals like strategic assets, rather than interchangeable support staff. The audiences were mostly other technical people who'd experienced similar situations, and the reception was always the same. Knowing nods and quiet appreciation for someone finally articulating what they'd all experienced. The speaking engagements led to consulting opportunities. Companies that had heard the story and wanted to audit their own technical dependencies before they became vulnerabilities. I found myself working with executive teams to identify critical infrastructure relationships and build proper management protocols around them. Alpine promoted me to Chief Technology Officer after my first year, with full authority over technical staff and infrastructure decisions. The equity options Gerald had mentioned were worth significantly more than anticipated as Alpine's expansion continued across multiple markets. But more valuable than the money was the professional respect, the understanding that technical expertise was a strategic asset worth protecting and developing. I hired Patricia Coleman as my deputy CTO, and together we built a technical team that operated more like a Navy unit than a traditional corporate department. Clear chains of command, documented procedures, regular training, and absolute accountability for results. No drama, no politics, just professional competence applied to complex problems. The industry noticed. Alpine's technical reliability became a competitive advantage that attracted larger clients and more sophisticated trading operations. Other companies started trying to recruit our staff, but we'd built something they couldn't easily replicate, a culture where technical expertise was genuinely valued rather than just tolerated. Meanwhile, TechFlow continued to struggle. They'd hired 4 different IT consulting firms trying to rebuild what they'd lost. But enterprise infrastructure isn't something you can patch together with contractors and good intentions. Their client base had migrated to more reliable platforms, their regulatory compliance remained questionable, and their operational costs had tripled due to inefficient systems and redundant vendors. I ran into Richard Walsh at a conference in Dallas 18 months later. He looked older, grayer, the way people look when stress becomes permanent. We exchanged polite nods but didn't speak. Some conversations aren't worth having twice, and we both understood the situation perfectly. The final chapter came 2 years later when TechFlow was acquired by a larger firm in what the press called a strategic consolidation. Industry translation: they were bought out to eliminate a struggling competitor and absorb their remaining client contracts. The acquisition price was less than half their peak valuation, and most of the original staff were let go during the integration. Brandon Walsh had left the financial services industry entirely by then, reportedly pursuing opportunities in real estate development. I heard through industry channels that he'd learned to keep his opinions about technical staff to himself, though whether that represented genuine wisdom or just expedient caution remained unclear. The broader lesson had spread throughout Austin's financial technology community. Treat your technical people like professionals, understand what they actually do for your operation, and build systems that can survive personnel changes without operational collapse. Companies that learned this lesson thrived. Companies that didn't found themselves struggling to explain technical failures to increasingly skeptical investors. I kept working, kept building, kept solving the kind of complex infrastructure problems that most people never see but everyone depends on. The work itself hadn't changed much. Networks still needed management. Security still required vigilance. Systems still demanded professional attention. But the context had evolved. Technical expertise was no longer taken for granted, and the people who possessed it were treated accordingly. The building still hums along efficiently. 3 floors of Alpine operations running smooth and profitable, while the space that once housed TechFlow's executive conference room sits empty, waiting for new tenants who hopefully understand the difference between loudness and leadership. Infrastructure doesn't remember personal disputes or corporate drama. It responds to competence, respects preparation, and rewards those who understand how complex systems actually function. Everything else is just noise that fades away while the real work continues, one properly configured network at a time. Some stories end with dramatic confrontations or emotional reconciliations. This one ended the way most professional situations actually conclude, quietly, with documentation and with everyone understanding exactly where they stand going forward. Power doesn't announce itself with corner offices and raised voices. It sits quietly in server rooms and contract clauses, waiting patiently for those who mistake volume for authority to discover the difference between what looks important and what actually matters. In the end, respect isn't something you can demand from a podium or inherit from a family name. It's something you earn one properly configured system at a time, one professional relationship at a time, until the day someone tries to fire you and discovers they just handed their entire operation to the competition.